Thanks for having us, everyone. It's an honor to be here. You'll be hearing from myself and Simona Balan today. Um, as for me, as I stated earlier, I'm an environmental scientist with the North Coast Regional Water Quality Control Board and Basin Planning Unit. I received a double BA in Environmental Studies and Biology at Santa Cruz and my MS and PhD in Environmental Science Policy and Management from UC Berkeley. But before I get into my own role at the agency, I wanted to tell you a little bit about the water boards and what we do for the state and its citizens. We are a regulatory agency. We develop, implement, and enforce laws and regulations designed to keep the water you drink, bathe in, fish, and swim in clean. In other words, we protect the beneficial uses of water statewide. We operate under our parent agency, the State Water Resources Control Board, which does maintain some centralized duties, especially water rights, but the vast majority of the daily work to protect California's water quality takes place within the 9 regional board offices, each with their own board appointed by the governor. My office manages the north coast of California, ranging from Sonoma County to the Oregon border. When it comes to water quality, there are a lot of challenges out there. When you think about it, water affects almost every facet of our lives for our entire lives. We deal with site cleanups, wastewater discharges, toxic algal blooms, groundwater, and many other challenges. But these are the 4 biggest ones in our regions. We regulate dairies and agriculture, ensuring that operators prevent animal waste from entering our rivers, lakes, and streams. Stormwater, we regulate cities, counties, industry, agriculture, transportation, and development to minimize pollutants that wash into our creeks and rivers when it rains. Timber production, we regulate commercial harvesters to protect water quality and prevent sediment from entering the waterways from that operation and protect aquatic habitat for salmon. And now cannabis cultivation. There are up to 50,000 individual growers in our region just between Sonoma County and the Oregon border, where issues of pesticides, fertilizers, and sediment are huge. When discharges cross the line, create hazards, or engage in conduct that destroys habitat and pollutes our water supplies, we use the enforcement powers of the state to impose substantial fines on dischargers and require cleanups and remediation. These are all cases that have transpired just in the last 12 months, just in the North Coast region. In fact, down there on the right, the Healdsburg case actually ended up in a $6.4 million settlement that was just announced the day before yesterday. But we also have a number of non-regulatory programs. We're out there in the community trying to resolve long-standing problems with water quality, flooding, water supplies. And this is my side of the house. The Watershed Stewardship Program is a relatively new program in the water boards. These positions are designed to develop and implement water quality regulations and conduct water quality monitoring in the region's highest priority watersheds. These include the Scott, the Shasta, the Klamath, the Eel, the Russian, and the Elk River. These are outward-facing, multidisciplinary jobs where much of our time is spent engaging directly with communities suffering impacts. We develop and manage state grants and contracts. We review, rank, and award funding proposals. We conduct and oversee primary research on watershed health, and we work closely with our agency partners and tribes to ensure that all of our work is permitted and aligned with state and federal law. My own breadth of experience in having worked as a wildlife biologist for many years, spent more than a decade working in tribal government, and with a background in fire ecology and ecological research, it's afforded me the kind of experience, skills, and perspective to tackle these really multifaceted challenges on behalf of the state. On the ground, I'm responsible for working with a remote rural community in the north part of our region that's been subjected to increasingly severe flooding and impaired water supplies for more than 30 years due to logging activity in the upper watershed. I manage several $1 million in state grants and contracts dedicated to the recovery of the Elk River, and I'm directly engaged with the community and our sister agencies implementing science, monitoring, permitting, and construction required to recover the lower 18 miles of the Elk River. I also manage one of the state's newest regional monitoring programs in the Russian River, where I coordinate science and governance development for a program you might think of as a basin-wide water quality surveillance program that includes 2 counties, 10 municipal governments, 2 water agencies, numerous NGOs, and tribes. And to round out my current workload, I also serve as the region's tribal coordinator, tasked with developing detailed information on more than 35 tribes and tribal organizations in our region. I'm developing an amendment to our regional basin plan on tribal beneficial uses, which has a large public and tribal outreach component, and several other duties, including coordinating with tribes in a formal government to government capacity on regional projects and policies, in addition to those convened by our agency's principals in Sacramento. These tribal coordinator roles are also relatively new to state government. There's not a single full PY who's dedicated to this role in any of the regions. These are significant new duties added to staff willing to take them on. And for those of you who aren't aware, the state does not have jurisdiction on tribal lands. Tribes are sovereign governments and their lands are held in trust by the federal government. So where issues come up that require or would benefit from partnerships and consultation, it's crucial that the state put forward people in technical and diplomatic roles who know these communities and governments. I'm currently the only tribal coordinator in any of the 9 regional offices or the state board who's an enrolled member of a California Indian tribe. Now, these important roles are built around individuals with broad technical and professional backgrounds, working collaboratively with teams of scientists, geologists, and engineers. The diversity of viewpoints, experience, skill sets, and technical skills are the key to our success. When we lose one of these individuals, the ripple effects can be significant both internally and externally. We often don't have the luxury of time to deal with a lot of these issues. When it comes to discharges into public waterways, nuisance flooding conditions, cleanup of toxic sites, the work can't wait a couple more years for people to train up new staff. We can't wait for new staff to meet and create productive working relationships with our agency partners and public stakeholders. It just has to get done. So when scientists leave, usually for higher paying jobs, our ability to respond to threats that the public needs us to really suffers. My division is comprised of about 10 rank and file technical staff, 1 specialist, 3 managers, and 2 scientific aides. All 3 of our managers promoted from the scientist class. We don't have an engineering unit or a geologist unit. We're all engaged in very similar tasks, just on different projects and different watersheds. We suffer from turnover and frequent vacancies. Almost half of us have been with the agency for 3 years or less, and fully half of us have been in our current roles for 3 years or less, including each of our managers. In terms of the specific duties, we develop, as I stated before, develop, implement, and enforce regional policies and permits. We develop scientific reports and often are published and peer-reviewed, as well as state policy. We oversee and manage large-scale restoration projects and monitoring programs. We facilitate communication strategies, development and implementation, lots of public outreach, cross-programmatic collaboration in all of the areas that I mentioned. To work at a watershed scale, we really have to know all of the other programs in our agency. We're not as compartmentalized or stovepiped as many other agencies are. We work across programs. We have to know the full breadth and depth of our agency's obligations, capacities, and authorities. And then we regularly report progress on those directly to our appointed board. And on occasion, we step out of our traditional roles, set our duty statements aside, and do what we must to respond to public emergencies. In 2017, for the first time in our agency's history, my office received mission task orders from the Governor's Office of Emergency Services, directing us to coordinate the state's response to threats to water quality posed by the fiery destruction of nearly 9,000 homes and businesses, threatening more than 600 waterways on one warm, windy night in October. Our office, represented by integrated teams of scientists, geologists, and engineers, works shoulder to shoulder with first responders and our federal and county partners to survey the entire burn area, identify threats to public health and safety, and create technical approaches to resolve those threats. And what do our engineers and geologist colleagues do? Pretty much the exact same thing, side by side, shoulder to shoulder. In fact, several years ago, our management conducted a detailed analysis of the functional roles of our staff, pulling directly from duty statement language of the various classifications of scientists, geologists, and engineers. Not really to anyone's surprise, this analysis revealed that the majority of the day-to-day activities of these professional staff are largely identical. And you'll even find many of our scientists in our unit who have significant skills in the geologist and engineering disciplines. My own position was actually reclassed from an engineer to an environmental scientist just prior to my hiring, but the duty statement remained almost completely identical. One of the reasons for the reclass was the region actively recruited me based on my education, experience, and skill set, and was even able to get a HAM petition approved on that basis. And just one final note about what I do. I wanted to leave you of what I do to make ends meet on a monthly basis. As a single father of teenage twin daughters, my modest expenses in a high-cost county still outweigh my income. So I do what I must to try and prevent the further erosion of my kids' standard of living. I also spend a significant amount of time applying for and interviewing for higher paying jobs in my area, which are few and far between. So until either I find a job that pays more of a living wage or this process results in a living wage, I hit the road. Or at least that was true before COVID. Now my opportunity to earn extra income has evaporated. My regular salary has been reduced by 10%. I'm doing more hours of work to backfill the 5 PYs that our office lost to contact tracing. And I'm nearing the end of the mortgage forbearance I was able to get from my lender. And this is true for a lot of scientists in my office. It feels like the walls are closing in faster and faster in these times. So with that, I would like to thank you for your time and attention and briefly pause before I leave you in Simona's very capable hands.